This is All India Radio. In the program Money Talk, now we bring you a discussion on the significance of G20 Infrastructure Working Group meeting. The participants are Dr. Manasi Gore, Department of Economics, Savitribai, Phule, Pune University, and Manoj, Kshirsagar, AIR Correspondent.
The two-day G20 Infrastructure Working Group IWG meeting concluded today in Pune with the participants deliberating on various aspects of infrastructure investments. The first G20 Infrastructure Working Group meeting was held on 16th and 17th January in Pune. On day one on Monday, the Infrastructure Working Group delegates did a series of official meetings and discussed the 2023 infrastructure agenda. The G20 meeting was preceded by a number of Jan Bhagidari initiatives by the Pune Municipal Corporation and other Pune city stakeholders, including lectures on G20, seminar on making cities future ready and importance of urban development, a G20 cyclothon, a motorbike rally on National Youth Day, Swachhata Drive and model G20 discussions in the education institutions. The initiative aims to involve people from all walks of life in the discussions happening around the G20 meeting, after which the Infrastructure Working Group delegates visited the Pune University for tree plantation, followed by a high-level workshop on financing for the cities of tomorrow. The workshop discussed the relevant themes pertaining to technical and managerial capacity to build the cities of tomorrow with investors' considerations in order to increase the private financing and the financial capacity needs. The first day of the meeting ended with a day concluding networking dinner. The meeting witnessed the participation of 66 delegates from Infrastructure Working Group member countries, guest nations and international organizations who were invited to discuss the 2023 infrastructure agenda under the Indian G20 presidency. The Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance and Government of India hosted the two-day Infrastructure Working Group meetings with Australia and Brazil as the co-chairs. The G20 Infrastructure Working Group deliberates on various aspects of infrastructure investments, including developing infrastructure as an asset class, promoting quality infrastructure investment, and identifying innovative instruments for mobilizing financial resources for infrastructure investment. The significant outcomes of the Infrastructure Working Group feed into the G20 finance track priorities and promote infrastructure development. In the Pune meeting, discussions majorly focused on the agenda for the Infrastructure Working Group under the Indian presidency. The flagship priority to be discussed in this meeting has been about financing cities of tomorrow, inclusive, resilient and sustainable. Over the years, the Infrastructure Working Group has been stressing on key themes of infrastructure development, such as building infrastructure as an asset class, promoting quality infrastructure investment, QII, indicators, InfraTech agenda, among others. The theme of India's G20 presidency, One Earth, One Family, One Future, sets the tone for the 2023 infrastructure agenda as it underlines the message of equitable growth and aptly ties up with the central agenda of the discussions, which is determined to build resilient, inclusive and sustainable urban infrastructure. The theme also focuses on various facets of making cities economic centers of growth, financing and building future-ready urban infrastructure, directing fiscal investments for unlocking private financing for energy-efficient and environmentally sustainable infrastructure, and mitigating social imbalances. Today, the Infrastructure Working Group deliberated on 4 financial development sessions. In the two-day meeting, apart from the formal discussions, the delegates also experienced the rich culture and beautiful landscapes of the city with optional excursions such as Pune Heritage Walk, City Tour and a trip to Mahabaleshwar. To understand more on the economic and infrastructural readiness of India and the significance of the first Infrastructure Working Group meeting and India's G20 presidency, listen to the exclusive interview of Dr. Manasi Gore, Assistant Professor at Department of Economics, Savitribai, Phule, Pune University.
First G20 Infrastructure Working Group meeting held in Pune on 16th and 17th January 2023. On this backdrop, we are going to have an interaction with Dr. Manasi Gore, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She is into teaching for 25 years and has also authored 2 books on economics. Madam, I welcome you to the studios of All India Radio.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
India has got the presidency of G20, but 2023 is also the year to establish India's global leadership. India not only holds the presidency of G20, but in 2023, India also holds the presidency of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, also known as the SCO, another very important global organization. Similarly, the third one, called the Wassenaar Agreement, is also chaired by India. India was also the President of the United Nations Security Council in 2022. India was also the Chairman of the Executive Council of the World Health Organization. India is present in every important international and regional organization you see in the world today. On this backdrop, we will have a sneak peek into the economic and infrastructural readiness of India to take a lead in G20 and beyond. Madam, what are your observations?
Yes, the year 2023 is surely India's global leadership year, and holding the presidency of G20 is very prestigious for India as being one of the fastest growing economy of the world. The position of India in the UN Security Council as well as in the Executive Council of WHO indeed is showing India's very positive role in the global economy. This can be explained by few indicators that prove India's international image with its progress in last couple of decades. And basically this talks about India's economic readiness. If we look at India's position today, it is fifth in the GDP rank with $3.469 trillion of GDP in the year 2022. The GDP growth rate of India had been 6.8% in 2021 and 6.3% in 2022, and if you notice, it is not of any economy of the world, including that of US. The HDI score of India stands at 0.633, which is in medium range. Ease of doing business rank of Indian economy as a whole, it is 63rd, and it indicates that it is very easy to do any business in India, and that is very impressive for the foreign investors. The forex reserves of India stands today at $588 billion. It is having the second largest labor force in the world, amounting to almost 50 crores, and that is a huge amount that we have. It is also a sixth largest manufacturing hub with 2.6% of the global output, and this is how economically India is very ready for this G20 perspective.
Yes, quite true. Madam, G20 countries account for 85% of the world's trade. These nations account for 75% of the global GDP. And these nations have 75% of the world's population living in them. It includes all types of nations, both developed and developing. Of course, the decisions taken by them affect the economy of the world. India has raised the issues of black money, financial criminals, corporate tax rates, etc. The various issues raised by India from this forum have been taken seriously by the world. What do you say?
Yeah, true. India has globally raised the issues of black money and financial criminals, as you have mentioned, and it has worked within the economy also on these issues, such as corruption, economic disparities, with certain policy measures. I would name few of them, such as digital payments, direct cash transfers to the beneficiaries, Jan Dhan accounts and opening of them, and some of the targeted subsidies that India worked on with this conviction.
Yeah. We'll more elaborate on this point only. The World Bank has praised India's economic initiatives in its reports. For example, the digital public infrastructure that India has built in the last 8 years would have taken much longer for any other country. Rupee card, UPI, FASTag, the digital transformation and the progress India has made in a short period of time in terms of startups and unicorns. The G20 forum will definitely be useful for India to present it to the world.
Sure. India's development on digital infrastructure is really amazing, as it has been mentioned by the World Bank. Digital payments, online payments and e-commerce has really changed the life of common man in India, which was never ever expected. It has further promoted inclusive growth of the economy. Technological and digital infrastructure has completely changed the way of life by more easy, speedy and cashless transactions for the masses, and this is a great change. This has helped to reduce corruption on a large scale. Even the smallest monetary transaction is accounted by the UPI payments. A small chaiwala or a small tapri, that also is accounted in terms of its transactions, and that is very important.
Madam, in terms of demography, Young India is the brand ambassador for Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, Fit India. The country has very high expectations from the youth. They are the big assets for the country. Almost 60% of our population is below 35, so India will be a leading workforce for the world, as you said earlier. What are your suggestions for the youth to benefit from this?
Yes, Young India no doubt is the opportunity to reap the so-called demographic dividend. Demographic dividend, as we all know, it's the dividend which is to be paid on an asset. If the demography is considered as an asset, demography is definitely going to enjoy the dividend. It has the second largest labor force in the economy of the world, with good education, relatively better skill development, along with its cost effectiveness. Indian labor is demanded worldwide for being cheaply available across the world. However, if this huge workforce is to be converted in terms of as an asset to get a dividend, it needs to be well oriented and well planned. And I think that is the biggest challenge before the economy. The educated labor force must fulfill the global demand by necessary skill sets in terms of soft skill development, and that is very important. At the same time, the new educational policy which we have adopted in 2020 and would be effective right from this academic year would be in a position to effectively implement with more practical approach, because merely the graduates in terms of quantity are not going to be useful. On the contrary, they will be useless unless they are qualified by skill sets and market approach. Increasing the youth employability, therefore, I think would be the biggest challenge here if we really want to turn this demographic dividend in terms of an asset.
Very well said, madam. And lastly, how smart cities like Pune, are to benefit from the organization of meetings leading to the G20 conference?
Yes. In case of smart cities like Pune, and how they would be benefiting from this G20 meetings that are taking place in India, basically, we need to basically look at India's G20 priorities. And they all tend to prioritize the smart and sustainable cities and living for the people within them, not only in India, but for the entire globe. If we just look at the theme of India's G20 presidency, it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam,
yes,
which is a Sanskrit concept from Upanishads and which basically means one earth, one family and one future. And this can be achieved by India's G20 priorities, which are listed on official document of India, is green development, climate finance and lifestyle for environment, accelerated, inclusive and resilient growth of the economy, accelerated progress on sustainable development goals, which is agenda for 2030. We are interested to have that kind of a world where all the economies would be sustainable. Then technological transformation and digital public infrastructure, multilateral institutions for 21st century, and finally the women-led development. All these priorities, if you look at, they clearly indicate our value for all lives, humans, animals, plants, microorganisms, and their interconnectedness that would enable the sustainable development, of which smart cities along with smart villages is an integral part. And therefore, G20 is a platform where India can showcase its strategies and see to it that the world too reinforces the same as it is.
One thing is clear from this, that today there are 193 countries in the world, but everyone wants to partner with India. Today all the European countries as well as all the big advanced developed rich countries need India. Prime Minister Modi had made a very important statement a few months ago that till date the big international organizations used to set their agenda and make their rules, and India followed them scrupulously. Now the situation has changed. Now India is setting the agenda of these international organizations. India is making the rules and the world is following them. I think no one can stop this country from becoming a superpower in the 21st century. And when this country becomes a superpower, every youth in the country will be a brand ambassador of the country. Thank you, Dr. Manasi Gore, for coming to our studios and enlightening our listeners on the niceties about the economic and infrastructural readiness of India to take a lead on the G20 forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on significance of G20 Infrastructure Working Group meeting. The participants were Dr. Manasi Gore, Department of Economics, Savitribai, Phule, Pune University, and Manoj, Kshirsagar, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.